Okay, folks, welcome. So I'm going to do a video real quick here on changes to the morale system. And I think this is a very important change. One of the strongest mechanics in Dominions 5 were morale plays, right? It was ways to win by routing the enemy army. And if you could rout the enemy army, you were going to carry the day most likely in the battle. You can cut off retreat routes so that people retreating from battles furthermore die. There's a bunch of things you could do. It was a really strong mechanic. And furthermore, counterplay was limited and difficult. What do I mean by that? I mean, counterplay was pretty tough. Like, you had to put like an item on every single mage you wanted to bring if you wanted your mages to not run. The only spell you could really cast to counter, like Wailing Winds and Blood Rain, which were the two iconic morale play spells in Dominions 5, the only spell that you could cast would be Growing Fury, and that would make your mages go berserk and run into combat. So there wasn't really a lot of counterplay. And these were really strong spells. There were things you could do, like try to end the battle really quickly, do like huge evocations at the start. You can Vortex of Returning your guys out and try to like attrition down armies. There's a bunch of things you could do to try to mitigate, Wailing Winds and things like that. Like you could do also like Mass Flight, try to jump across the battlefield really quickly. But it was a very, very strong mechanic, and there wasn't a lot of counterplay. And furthermore, Sermon of Courage sucked in Dominions 5, and now it's actually good. So I'm going to explain the changes and how it works. And I think they have implemented like the perfect solution to some of the challenges and issues with Wailing Winds and morale plays in general. So the first thing is that, I'll just say this, fear mechanics have been both nerfed and strengthened. So how have they been nerfed? Well, they've been nerfed because before, the fear effect, which was an aura, could only go up to -5, right? So once you got -5 from fear, like if you started with morale 12, you would get -5, you go down to 7. It couldn't go any lower than that. Now, you would still take morale checks every turn that you were in a fear aura, so still being in a fear aura would continue, even once you've gotten to -7, it would continue to generate checks that would cause you to run. So that was important. But you could never get to like go from 12 down to 2 or 12 down to 0. Now you sort of can. So the fear mechanic is actually way stronger, except for the changes that have been made to Sermon of Courage. So the fear effects now go all the way down to -10. So if you sit in Wailing Winds long enough, it will take, because all Wailing Winds is, as a spell, is it's popping up. Oh, I'll cast it. We'll pause it real quick. Okay, so this is Dominion 6, and we're casting Wailing Winds, which is a new path, by the way. It's a Glamour first and Air second as the spell. So it uses Glamour gems. You have to be, we'll pull it up in a second. But so all these little clouds you can see that are spawning around the battlefield, like this cloud, we'll wait and see some that actually hit the... So here, this guy's in a cloud. I haven't... He's lost a bit of morale. These militia are base 10, but are base 8. But, I've been hitting in turn, so they've gotten a bunch of extra experience stars. And then they've also got a home morale province bonus, but have a -1 from being in my dominion, because they're independent. That's also a thing that can be relevant when you're expanding, is expanding into indies in your dominion actually get a morale penalty. These things can matter. Oh no, it's not to Wailing Wind, so I was thinking Rigor Mortis. Okay, some of these guys are running. What are their morale? What's their morale? 9. It's interesting, they're not running as a whole squad, they're breaking off individually, which I think that must be different too. I haven't seen this quite before. That must be new and different. This was not how it worked in Dominions 5. The whole squad would rout. But yeah, you can see people are breaking off. How low is morale getting? Yeah, it's not actually getting very low. I think, so I'm going to go back and pull up the mechanics here. So Wailing Winds seems to be significantly nerfed. And I'll tell you the part Okay, well, let's get into this. So the bonus can go from -10 to +1. So the +1 you would only get from Sermon of Courage. You can get more than a +1 bonus from things like a Bless or commander items or things like that. But this magic bonus, this particular slider, which is affected by Fear and Sermon of Courage, goes from -10 to +1. Now, why didn't we see all of the units with Wailing Winds up getting... We saw people running. They were failing morale checks. But they weren't... we didn't see a ton of running. And why was the morale generally not so low in most of the troops, even though they had sat in it for a while? Well, the answer is here. The morale magic bonus will increase by 1 about every 2 rounds if it's negative. A positive morale bonus will be left the entire battle if left to itself. So what does this mean? It means that if Wailing Winds hits you and your morale goes down for a bit, it'll bump back up and be positive. Yeah, if we go down to like -5 because we get hit by a pretty bad Wailing Winds burst, over the next few rounds it'll go back up to 0 if you don't get hit by it again. So that's pretty significant. So what does this mean? It means that if you just have a little sprinkling of Fear Aura, like a little tiny dash, it's actually not going to do that much. But once you start having a lot of Fear Aura, a lot of it, and it starts stacking together, it starts being very effective. And this actually is a lot closer to how things were back in Dominions 4 and in Dominions 3. It used to be one of the things you could do is you take a pile of Demon Knights or you take a pile of Hydra, these are units with fear, and you put them together and they would just like toast people's morale. They would go instantly to 0 and run. And we're going to be getting a lot closer to that effect because if you have a lot of dense Fear Aura, you'll get units down to very low morale and they'll run. But a sprinkling now, a tiny bit of fear will generally, like as we saw in this battle, it will cause people to run. Like there's people that are running here. And in fact, it's likely everybody runs because we're close to the army route threshold. But so people were running, but they weren't running terribly quickly. But once you get to a critical mass, let me see if I can show you. I'll pause it again. Okay, so I got a battle here with like 30 Demon Knights slamming into like 100 PD. And they're going to get a little wrecked. These steeds are pretty tough and pretty high protection, but they don't have a shield, so the crossbows are going to mess them up. Let me just see what... And importantly, these guys have fear. These guys are already down to 5. They were at 10, -1 hostile dominion, -1 squad morale bonus, home province +1 magic bonus. This is the one we care about. That's at -4. These guys are at -3. Okay, it's not as instant as I would have thought. I mean, this guy's down at 1, 2. Yeah, I mean, they're all... Once you get that low, you're going to start routing anyway. Because it's very hard to stay at 1 or 2 morale, or even 5 morale and not run. Unfortunately, the Demon Knights are getting a little shredded by crossbows. But things just really don't... I mean, we're only on round... wait, what do I hit? I forget the hotkey to see it, the turn number. Was it B? Question mark? So one thing you can do is always hit question mark and it'll show you whatever you're looking for usually. Hold tab. Team colored scores. Show battle round. Combat round 5. Yeah, we're on round 5 and they spent 2 rounds running into combat. And basically everybody who stood next to them is running. You can't stop it. Now the magic bonus is only getting up to like -3. But you can imagine, and so this is all fear effects, right? So you can imagine now you have fear on your sacreds, and you're also spamming out panic or other things. Because, I mean, things are running too fast for the fear counter to really get up to 10, but it will. If you stack, you know, imagine if I'd put, I mean, we could do it again. I'll do it again. Wait, why did these guys go here? Oh, I had snuck them from a previous turn. We'll take this guy. We'll slam him into this. We still got 20 guys left. And then from Marignon's side, I'm going to go ahead and put Army of Gold on this. We'll teleport over here. And then this way they will... yeah, this way they are going to last a lot longer, and we'll get to see them actually hold out. And we don't have crossbows here, so the demon knights aren't going to die. And we'll just see what happens here real quick. This will be more close to how like player armies would go. Oh, there are a lot of crossbows because Tianchi gets them, I forget. It's part of their PD. Okay, so these guys have sat here for a long time. These demon knights are going to start dying. Yeah, -1 morale, 5 morale, 6 morale. It's really these places where there's like a solid contact. I think it would do better. I should have put them in a line. Yeah, the PD ended up holding there, but you can see they routed a ton of dudes. So what does this mean? It means massed fear plays are back. Okay, you can do, like, if you have a lot of fear density, and these things... So I think there's a few things to take from this. One is, if you don't have a lot of fear, then this regeneration, this passive, like, morale increasing by about 1 every 2 rounds, will do a pretty good job at soaking up a little bit of fear, even though a little bit of fear will cause a little bit of routing. In a few rare cases, independent units will rout independently. Yeah, we could look at what all these are, but that was one of the things that was happening with the indies that we were sending off to retreat. But yeah, so masked fear is going to work. If you have a little bit of fear, the trickling of morale increasing by about 1 every 2 turns will usually keep it pretty high. But the other thing now is that Sermon of Courage is going to embolden units with +1 morale. It can only go up to +1, but they can now preach, like, not preach, but Sermon of Courage away negative morale. So now if you have a big army and you support it with a lot of Holy Twos, which there didn't used to really be a good purpose of, you'll be able to get rid of a lot of that. This also means nations that are like capped at Holy One access are going to be very vulnerable to fear plays in ways that nations that, like, previously it was never something you looked at. You weren't ever like looking at a nation really and being like, oh, they don't have Holy Twos. It was something that it might be important just for controlling Dominion, but you never cared about Sermon of Courage. And now, and Fanaticism will do it over the whole battlefield. So you can keep slamming Fanaticism. So now if you can get a Holy 4, you can just keep hitting the whole battlefield. So now you can do it, through communions. So this is probably the way that if you don't have access to Holy 2s, you can potentially get... And I don't know how the spellcasting AI will be, but this is something we can mod. So we can definitely fix if Fanaticism is a low priority spell, we could make it a high priority spell. We have to be careful, because if it's too high a priority, then every priest mage who joins a communion will cast Fanaticism instead of whatever else they could cast. But hopefully we can find a value for which it works well. But yeah, you can basically slam out Sermon of Courage and Fanaticism, and you're going to get rid of any of the morale penalties. So I think there's now a real game around the morale plays. Let's make sure we just cover all the changes here. So to show you Wailing Winds, this is the spell now. It's Glamour 4, Air 1 instead of Death. So this is pretty interesting. And then there might be another one too. I need to go through and check and make sure we're not missing any. But the other big morale play, of course, is, what is this? That's a new global. But the other big one is Blood Rain, if I can find it. I'm sure I've gone over it. Oh, no, here it is. So, yeah. Continuously targets... Oh, wait, this is... Oh, hello. Okay, we got to pause. I got to figure this out. So I've got a battle here where we're casting Blood Rain and Wailing Winds versus Army of Golden Region. So that's Blood Rain. Wailing Winds should go up shortly. Okay, Wailing Winds is up now, too. With Fear 1 and Frighten 1. So Fear and Frighten appear to be different mechanics. Let's see if we can find Frighten in the manual, but it looks like... what I want to see is if they work on the same counter. So, like, these guys should have been hit by this. They just have the magic bonus. This probably should be explained in the manual. Yeah, I don't think they're working on a separate axis. Like, I don't think there's two different things. What I think, and we can get confirmation of this, but what I think is happening... Yeah, I don't see a separate one. So what I think is happening is that the Frighten effect is capped, where basically it's going to say, we're going to keep lowering the magic morale bonus. So we're going to make that further more negative until we get to 5, but it won't lower it past 5. But it will help. I think it will still synergize with Wailing Winds in that it'll help get things down to... it'll help get things down to -5, but Wailing Winds will be the only thing that gets it past that. That's my guess. If I hesitate to call it an understanding, it's more of a guess. Let's check here real quick for Frighten. The squad has been subjected to a spell causing fear. Okay, so fear, this is, I think, why we were seeing things run earlier. This is what we had seen. This is the particular fear mechanic of Wailing Wind can cause people to individually route now. I think that's new. I don't remember seeing that before. Okay. Yeah, I don't think it illuminates this anymore in the manual, but yeah, I think that's basically a summary of the changes to this mechanic. I should have shown you the battle too with the Sermon of Courage being cast, but I have a feeling morale plays are now. Here's my brief understanding is that morale plays are now in a place where if you find ways to stack it, right? Like if you're doing Blood Rain, if you're doing Wailing Winds, if you have it also on your units, if you're casting Fear and Panic, if you're finding ways to stack it now, like very heavily, I think it can be stronger than it was before. But I think if you're doing a casual thing, like, oh, I'm just going to put up Wailing Winds, I think it's significantly weaker. And furthermore, it has counters. So that, I think, is the standing of it. And it's I spent a fair amount of time now talking about it, but I think it was one of the most important mechanics in Dominions 5, and it's undergone now major change, and I think it's for the better. I think there's a game now, there's Counterplay with Sermon of Courage and Fanaticism. Nobody used to care about Fanaticism. It wasn't an important thing, but now a battlefield-wide fight against fear, that could be a really big deal. So I think that the things that boost priest level are going to be more important. Like, there's major mechanical things that are going to be that are going to be changed by this. So, yeah, I think it's interesting now too. Like, how do you stack? Like stacking all the different ways you can think of to stack fear. Like nations that have access to Wailing Winds. It's not like, oh, I don't need fear. I think it's actually, well, now this is a nation. Maybe I should think about taking fear on my sacreds. But all this will be shown out in multiplayer. We'll see if these actually are good strategies or they're not, or how this actually works. But this is kind of, from reading the mechanics, my musings on it. So thanks for staying tuned. We'll be having a lot more of these short mechanical videos coming out. So yeah, stay tuned, and I'll hit you with the next one soon. Take care.